Good morning, guys. It is Sunday the 14th, Valentine's Day, and I wanted to finally make my In Cold Blood review. My hair's a bit crazy, sorry. I really liked it. So, I'm going to talk a bit spoiler-ish, I guess. So, if you haven't read it or you're planning to read it sometime or you're still reading it, I won't. It's really hard to talk about this book without spoiling it because it is just fact, and even the book itself doesn't really hide much. Um, but yeah, if you are intending to read it, maybe skip this video or watch it another time. So, In Cold Blood was the first book that I decided to have as a part of the reading kind of club that I started with myself. So I've had this book for a very long time, and I've always wanted to read it, but I've always just put it off, and I'll read it one day, and I finally thought, you know what a good book to start a little reading club with. I will say the first 100, first 50 or so pages, I wasn't really feeling it. It took me a little bit to get into it. It was quite, maybe I'll have it set up here. It was quite, I guess, dry. I don't know. I just couldn't really figure out the pacing and the style of writing which Capote was trying to, I guess, invent at the time. And it took a little bit for me to really start to love it. I really was getting a bit bogged down with the facts and everything about the Clutter family was getting a bit much. But I really do see at the end of the book now that it's like that was worth everything. That was worth the squeeze. The juice was worth the squeeze. I found the writing style to be very captivating. I was hooked after. I'd say like after like page 100, I guess I couldn't put it down. I really wanted to finish it. Every single page was just a joy. It was really just such a monumental book to read. I did a little bit of research on the writing of it, and I watched the movie Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman, which I really enjoyed. It seems that he had a writing partner of Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, how much she wrote and how much she contributed, I'm not sure. There's lots of debate that she did a lot of it. Either way, incredible work from the both of them. Watching Capote in the movie really did kind of make the book a bit more polarizing for me. There was times in the movie where I could remember the parts of the book that I had read, and it's just such a wow. He really was this kind of larger than life, ostentatious kind of guy, and it really does come across in the book at some parts. I don't know. I guess the story itself is kind of cut and dry. Like there really isn't too much of a mystery or anything, but it's more, I guess, just a telling of a story, like really fleshing it out. Rather than just like a magazine article or something. But for its time, it would have been pretty monumental. I would say the highlight of the book is towards the end of the chapter Answer, which the book's broken up into 3 parts. I think it's, what is it? The Last to See Them Alive. Oh no, 4, sorry. Last to See Them Alive, Persons Unknown, Answer, and then The Corner. So it's pretty short, the book, but towards the end of the Answer, there's the part where I think it's either Capote or one of the detectives was talking to Perry Smith, one of the killers of the Clutter family, and Perry is kind of this seen as like a soft and intelligent individual that, you know, didn't really mean to commit all these crimes. But, you know, towards the end of the book, you really do discover that this character is not as he presents himself, that he is quite cold and malice. But anyway, the detective is talking to him, and I think it should have been like the ending of the entire chapter because it was so powerful when I read it. It's after Perry Smith has just described the crime and walked through exactly what happened that night, and it's brutal. It's so brutal. It's, you know, I've read a lot of true crime, and, you know, I've read some crazy stuff, but this was just like something else. Like, it was kind of depraved in a way of, you know, just violence for violence sake. But anyway, they ask him, you know, what did you end up getting from the Clutter family? And he said about $40, which is like 4 people's lives for $40 is crazy. $10 each. But that was really powerful. And I don't know, it's hard to describe this book. I think this book has become one of my favorites because of how, I guess, influential it was for the genre of true crime itself, and also how powerful it was. I really enjoyed Capote's writing. I wish he wrote more after this, but unfortunately this was his last published book. I know he had one published posthumously, whether or not that was finished or not. But for me, I wish there was more time we had with him, and that he, you know, could really expand the genre of true crime a bit more and do a bit more. But I really enjoyed it. I think it was a great choice for a first pick. I kind of want to travel to the south of the US now. I've only done a very small kind of part of the south, and I think I'd like to see more of that rural township, and, you know, do some hiking between some towns and cities and see where I end up. The description of Kansas and Holcomb, I think was how it was pronounced. You know, a lot of people call that kind of side of the world a bit boring, and, you know, to where time moves slow. But for me, that's extremely interesting. I like that kind of southern country town where it's quiet and, you know, beautiful landscapes. I actually really like traveling to those parts. I traveled to Alaska in 2019, and I stayed in the middle of nowhere in Healy, and I like that kind of town where everyone knows everyone. That's real small. I like it, and it makes me want to visit the South and see those types of towns and landscapes, and, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm not too sure about what Holcomb looks like nowadays, but I assume it's still as small as it was back then, and Garden City and all that. I know Mike from Bibliophile Bookscape. I always forget his channel name, unfortunately. I know he lives very close to these towns, and I know the book hit quite close to home for him because he lives, you know, extremely close to these towns. But for me, the book was just so captivating. I can see in my head being in the 60s and, you know, reading a book like this for the first time, and, you know, being horrified that this happened, and, you know, being scared and locking your doors, because at the time it would have been terrifying, you know, that these 2 dudes just randomly came in and slaughtered an entire family for $40. But I think Capote really was a master of just captivating an audience and, you know, keeping him in the palm of his hand the entire time. And the only downside to the book, I think, was the ending. It ended so quickly. Within a couple pages, it just wrapped up instantly. And I felt like there should have been a little bit more time for it to simmer. Maybe a bit more of an update of everyone in the town that was mentioned, how the town recovered, if it ever did. I think more kind of, I don't know, I just wanted a bit more from the ending. It, you know, obviously the 2 that were convicted and sentenced to death, they were killed by the state. So, in a way their lives ended a bit abruptly, like the ending. But I feel like I just wanted a bit more from the ending. Maybe a bit more of a personal insight from the people close to them. I know the Clutters still have two children alive to this day, or maybe one, which is not really mentioned at all in the book, and I kind of understand that, maybe for privacy reasons. But I know that the other two eldest daughters weren't in the house at the time, so I feel like maybe a bit of input from them would have been a really, polarizing moment at the end of the book, if you got to talk to the older sisters, and maybe ended on a note from them, would have been incredible. Real powerhouse ending. I don't know. I think I just wanted a bit more from the ending because everything else was so good. But from the little research I had, I know Capote became quite close and connected to Perry Smith. That's my door creaking in the wind. I know he became quite close with Perry Smith, and there's always the rumor going around that he kind of fell in love with Perry Smith a little bit. I think obviously seeing him die was he never really recovered from that, and it was quite traumatic. So I can kind of understand that he just wanted to have this book ended and get it out of his life. But I don't know. I feel like having a bit of back context on the book is quite helpful as well. So if you get the chance, if you can find a DVD or a copy online of Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Philip Seymour Hoffman is my favorite actor. I love all his movies, and I'd never seen Capote, and this was his, I think, first and maybe only Best Actor Academy Award that he won. So it's safe to say it's a very good performance. The movie is mainly about In Cold Blood. It's not about the crimes. It's about the writing of the book and the publishing of the book. There is barely any scenes of the crime. There's towards the end where Perry's describing it, he gets like quick couple frame flashbacks of the crime, but that's about it. So it's not like a brutal, disgusting, betrayal of an entire family being slaughtered. It's more about Capote's connection with Perry Smith, which doesn't really have anything to do with the book, but I think if you want to enjoy the book better, maybe seeing the movie Capote or reading a book about Capote himself helps a lot. But super glad that I read this. I want to pick up some more Capote. I want to get Breakfast at Tiffany's, which I haven't seen the movie of either. So I'm going to be on the lookout for that. But this is my review of In Cold Blood. I very much enjoyed it. Here's a picture of Capote. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's going to be a little bit of a time between the next book we choose for the book club, just to kind of chill out, let this one kind of, simmer and digest. But thank you all for watching, as always, and have a very nice Valentine's Day, very nice Saturday, very nice weekend, all that jazz. Love you guys. Bye.